Hey, good evening. Welcome to Foreigner in the Philippines. Well, we just got back from the hospital. We've had a day at the hospital with Michael, and the good news is that Michael has now decided that he will be admitted. I've got something else going on. He will consent to be admitted to the hospital again, where he can be under close observation. Now, for those of you who don't know anything about, which would include me up to a few minutes ago, don't know anything about what Michael has dengue, and he's had this before. Apparently it's not, as far as I know, not a curable condition. A little bit sort of like malaria, it can come and go. And so he's had an attack of this before and felt very sick. Now, he found the conditions in the Philippine hospital, even in what was called a private room, were just intolerable for him, because so many people were there in support of the other patients, so he couldn't get any rest. So his decision was to come and stay with us. Now, I was always in favor of him being in the hospital, but the door is open if he feels that this is where he wants to be. And his wife Bonnie is not there to take care of him right now due to circumstances. She has to be back in New Zealand. So dengue, it is a killer virus. Now, what we have in our blood is we have what are called platelets. And platelets, I've just learned, are little irregular shaped little bits that flow through the blood. And when there's a cut, in order for that cut to be sealed, the platelets come and they go into the breach. They fill that gap, and they harden and form a crust. And I guess that's where you get the scab. It scabs over and it stops you leaking. Now, obviously, the best way of defending your body against any kind of hemorrhage of any kind is to have healthy platelets. And they judge whether platelets are healthy by the number that they have. And I haven't been able to find out exactly in the little research that I've just done on YouTube and on Google, haven't been able to find out what the ideal number is. But I do know that it's way above 100, possibly, and I'm guessing, possibly 150 or more. Now, when Michael went to hospital, we went up there to, the plan was to bring him back to our house, because as far as we knew, he was just feeling really poorly. So, come back and stay with us, Michael, we said, and we can take care of you. Well, I've got to tell you that Michael and I are kind of like brothers, because we were both born a few miles away from each other many years ago, okay, and we only just met when we came to the Philippines. But we were both born in Manchester, very close proximity to each other. And so there is a kinship there which is hard to break. So yes, come and stay with us and be one of our family until you get ready to be able to return to New Zealand, where you can have free healthcare. Now, I didn't know much about dengue, but I've now learned that, as I said, it can be a killer disease. So the danger that Michael was in, which we didn't appreciate when he was signing himself out of hospital, what we didn't appreciate was how critical his condition was, for how low the count was on his platelets, which was actually down to 16. Now, you don't have to know anything about what platelets do. But if you just know, if you only know that they are the mobile repair team for any cut or hemorrhage that you may have, and will stop you bleeding to death. So you also don't have to be a great mathematician to know that if something is supposed to be counted in the hundreds or 100, and it only is counting in 17, 16 was when we took him in, 16. The doctor did not want him to leave. It's only 16. He spent a day there. It became 17. Well, when we went today, we found out that his platelets had indeed doubled. And so the count right now at this time from the last test is 37. Well, that seemed like a big step forward to double any number. Once again, you don't have to be a mathematician, but if you double any number, that's a pretty big step forward. Well, Michael met with Julian, and Julian is, I believe, a dentist, and he was there at the hospital, and Michael showed him the test that he was so pleased with today and said, "Look, Julian, this is just great." And Julian looked at it and said, "Michael, it's not great, it's terrible." And then he explained, as the doctor tried to explain to us, that the dengue disease goes through various stages, and when you first get it, it's at one stage and then it progresses to another. Now, depending on what the count is of your platelets, it can be deemed critical. Even at 37, which is a big step forward, Michael is feeling a heck of a lot better, but he was educated by Julian to realize that actually he is in a critical stage, critical for his health and critical for his survival. And look at it, that platelets are the repair team, that's the mobile repair team that rushes to the site of a hemorrhage of any kind, whether it's a cut or an internal hemorrhage. It rushes to the site and it does the repair work. But it can only do the repair work if its number is sufficient to guarantee the strength to do the job. So a little bit like you or I trying to lift, if we're not that strong, we try to lift, say, a 200-pound weight. Would we be able to do it? Well, are we muscled up enough? Are we like Arnold Schwarzenegger? And if we're not going to be able to do that job. So the platelets, with such an incredibly low count, would not be able to do that job. Now, when the obvious question then is, okay, so if there is a hemorrhage for an internal hemorrhage for any reason, for any cause, what will happen? And apparently the far end of the extreme is that the person can die. Now, even though the doctor explained things very, very well, somehow she didn't get that through to Michael. So he discharged himself and came to stay with us. And then we took him in this morning as agreed and got him tested. And then fortuitously he met up with Julian, and Julian found just the right words to convince Michael to come back into the hospital. And that's what Michael has done. So he's in what they call a private room, but there are 3 other. It's a private room in a public, really what amounts to a simple small town hospital. And we'll have to see whether it becomes the bedlam that the other room did, and which is why he booked himself out of the hospital. We're hoping that he will get a good night's rest. He got a good night's rest last night because he was with us, and there's nothing here to disturb him other than perhaps the dogs, which don't constantly bark. So I came back, we left Michael there, I came back, got all Michael's stuff, all of his bedding and all stuff that he brought from the hospital, and we motored straight back, and he's already got his support team there who are going to stay all night just in case he needs anything at all. And we got his stuff to him, and he's got everything he needs. Now, we can't go to see him tomorrow because we're going to Tagbilaran, which is important. We must get our truck in for service before it's done 10,000 kilometers, because that's the condition of the warranty. So we cannot put that off. It has to be taken tomorrow. But we will hope to get back in time to be able to visit him again, at which time he will have another test under his belt, and he will have found out whether the platelets are yet again on the increase. Well, wouldn't it be wonderful if it doubled yet again, which would take him up in the 60s or 70s or possibly 80s. That's what we are praying for, and your prayers will certainly come in very handy. Michael is doing well. We're worried about him. Bonnie, if you're watching this, I'm sure you are, we've done everything that can be done, and now he is complying with what's needed, what the doctors need, what the hospital needs. The hospital is capable of treating that, well, of treating dengue, and they know what to do and are doing it. So as much as I can say there's nothing to worry about, then you'll understand. Thanks for looking in, everybody, and your prayers are very much appreciated. I'm sure that they have already done a great deal, and what we're looking for is to get Michael to the point where he's strong enough, where his platelets are strong enough to be able to meet any emergency that he may come up with, and get him on a plane to New Zealand, where he can go into highly successful, accomplished medical care. But with grateful thanks to what the little hospital in Taliban has done for him. Thank you so much to the doctors there. You are very much appreciated. Thanks for looking in, and bye for now.